Hi, welcome back to Guessagaingaming. So if any of you have played turn-based games much, you will probably recognise this as being XCOM 2. Actually it's XCOM 2 War of the Chosen, but it's just the extension of that. So this is a video I've wanted to make for quite a while, but I've never quite got round to it. I think a long time back on the channel I once played a bit of XCOM 2, but it was a long time ago and it's not a game that I did for the channel really, although I play it a lot. And I probably mention it a lot because I play it a lot and it's related to almost all turn-based games, some comparison to XCOM 2 or XCOM the originals. So I thought, bearing in mind I recently made a video about Phoenix Point, where I was saying that Phoenix Point is probably the most difficult turn-based game I've ever played, I thought I'd make a video talking about XCOM 2 compared to XCOM Enemy Within, or Enemy Unknown, both of those, because they're connected. Before I start, I've never played the earlier XCOM games. I know a couple of people in the comments have mentioned them, and I've seen them, I know what they are, I've seen them on YouTube, but I've never played them, so I can't comment on them, but I'm only talking about the two I've played. So, firstly, obviously with XCOM 2, and I always mention this when I talk about XCOM or when I talk about other turn-based games, I often say this about XCOM 2, it's glitzy, and you can see from how it looks, if you've never seen XCOM 2 before, then why not, but it's glitzy, it's shiny, it's glitzy, of course it's set in a kind of alien controlled modern world, so it would be, except the ruined areas are still human bits, but it's glitzy and the graphics are very good. Obviously it's a newer game than Enemy Within, Enemy Unknown, so that's why. But yeah, it's glitzy. I would say that it's buggy as hell. I've had to reinstall this many times, and often in games it crashes at different points, sometimes very annoying points. Luckily it's a game where you can save where you want, but it does crash a lot. So that's kind of annoying. But yeah, it's glitzy and the graphics are good, but of course it's a newer game, so that's the first thing. So I'm going to go into, and I always think before I start, I always think that XCOM 2 and XCOM War of the Chosen are streamlined versions of Enemy Within. They have that feeling, they've taken out lots of the bits and pieces of Enemy Within and not added many new bits. It's a streamlined, simpler version. Anyway, so I'll give you the reasons why I think, firstly, the pros to Enemy Within, and there's quite a lot. So, firstly, I think that the enemy variety is better. Not just, we'll start with the enemy variety of the aliens and those. I think the enemy variety in Enemy Within is more varied. I'm not counting the enemies in XCOM 2 or War of the Chosen or Enemy Within, so I don't know there's more, but they just seem more varied. And in Enemy Within, they seem to upgrade in more unusual ways and different ways, whereas in XCOM 2 they just basically, their weapons get slightly better and their shields get slightly better. So although it's good in XCOM 2, I think there's more variety of enemies, more interesting enemies in Enemy Within. Next, in Enemy Within you've got Exalt, which are the kind of human becoming alien supporters, and I think that's a really, really good and important part of XCOM Enemy Within, and it should have been an enemy in XCOM 2, because they're really interesting, because one, they give you something else to fight that's completely different, a completely different organisation from the aliens in Advent, and also you don't know why they're doing it, you don't know what their point is, you don't know why they're starting to do that, so I think that's a really good bonus in the game. Plus you've got side missions involving them, and they're actually often harder to fight than the aliens themselves, so I think that's a better part. And Exalt being all these weird extra things into it, they throw those grenades that have purple mist, if you've ever played it, which is incredibly annoying because then you can't shoot anyone for shit when they're in it, and so they've got other things that don't happen in this game at all, and I think that's really important. I know you've got different factions in XCOM 2, but I don't think they really add anything. The extra factions in this, the Reapers and the others, they're just like other units for XCOM. They send you on missions, but all the missions are very similar, like go and rescue that person, or that person's being attacked, or and they're all very similar, and all you really get from that is some bonuses that could have been added into XCOM anyway, and some soldiers with slightly different abilities, which again could have been added into the XCOM soldiers. So I don't really think they benefit that much, as opposed to Exalt as the enemy, which benefit a lot. The Chosen in XCOM War of the Chosen are interesting, but even then I still think Exalt offer a more diverse enemy than the Chosen, who again, once you get kind of used to fighting, they're not that difficult. So that's my thought on that. Okay, next thing, weapons. In XCOM Enemy Within, you've got a much bigger variety of weapons. I know you've got mods in XCOM 2, and I like them, but you've got mods in Enemy Within. You've got scopes and different bullets you can put in and loads of different things you can use as well. But in Enemy Within, you've also got different guns, and you can go backwards and forwards with various different guns. There's plasma guns, laser guns, different guns, scatter guns, different kinds of guns, rail guns. There's lots of different guns, more than there are in this, and there's more variety and more options to customise each soldier. There's also different kinds of armour. There's one kind of armour, this sit-in armour you make from. There's lots of different bits and pieces. There's much more options to customise each soldier as you want than there is in this, and I like that more as well. Also, the part where you've got the flying part, where you've got the hangar and you've got the ships that you make, and you've got different ships. You can upgrade ships. You end up with a kind of UFO kind of ship if you upgrade to the best available ship. You've got different weapons you can plant on your different ships or attach to your different ships that upgrade all the time, and you can make new ones, and that's a different thing. It's a bit between XCOM 2, which doesn't have that at all, and Phoenix Point, which has too much of that when you get the DLC, and it's overwhelming. So that's a really good part. Then you've got the covert missions, which you get in Enemy Within. Let's just shoot that. I'm going to miss, but anyway. Then you've got the oh wow, we hit. Then you've got the covert part, which you get for the fact that you've got Exalt doing things all over the place, and you've got to send agents, like plainclothes agents, who just that's a different thing that you don't get in this at all, and it really adds something to the game as well, and that's a lot of fun. I like that part of it. And you've got the little transmitter things you've got to try and protect, which is another part of that you don't have in this. I know you've got the bit where you've got to go and destroy, but again, it's all very similar. Destroy the alien relay, protect the alien relay. So those covert missions give you a whole extra thing, which I think is important. Money matters much more in Enemy Within than it does in this. I've had playthroughs in this where I've literally been a billionaire. I've had so many resources and so much money. It's overwhelming, and in Enemy Within I've never had too much money. You don't have the same options of getting money. You don't get money as often. There's much more things to spend money on. In this, research is free, in that you have to spend money on doing research and in the foundry, or just so money is much tighter in that. Again, it's more like Phoenix Point, where you don't have abundant resources. In this, it's pretty easy to be overflowing with resources and never have to think about it again. Another thing, which is another main thing from Enemy Within, which they remove completely, which is why I said at the beginning it's like a streamlined version, is the meld option and the cybernetic suit mech part, which they completely removed from this. I don't know why. The meld part was very, very interesting. The fact you had those meld canisters in lots of the missions where you had to kind of secure them. It was always a risk you get them or not. You don't really have that in this at all, and then you don't have the enhancements of your soldiers like you do in Enemy Within in this at all, which again is a thing that they took into Phoenix Point, but it's much more complicated in that, and I think Enemy Within got the right balance. And then you've got the cybernetics part, where you've got the cybernetics mech suits, and you've got cybernetic enhancements to your soldiers, and again that's another thing that's not in this at all. So there's a whole load of things they completely removed from this, which I think were all things that should have stayed. There's nothing that's in Enemy Within that I think was unnecessary, that was worth taking out, that it's benefited from at all. but there's lots of things that were good that they shouldn't have taken out. As far as XCOM 2, and I do like XCOM 2, I'm not, let's just blow that person up there. I do like XCOM 2, I've played it billions of hours, so it's not that I'm dissing XCOM 2, but I'm just thinking, you know, what could have been. So in XCOM 2, things I like are, obviously the graphics are better. I think the fluidity of movement is better when it's not crashing or buggy. So that's good. I think the customization in the context of physical customization for your own, let's get this guy out of the way, for your own soldiers is better. So that's good. But again, it's because it's a more modern game, so it's kind of better, but it would be because it's a more modern game. The one thing I think is a huge improvement on, massive improvement on Enemy Within is the stealth aspect, which is this thing, which you'll know if you've ever played it, where you've got this suit and you can use it to use grapple, which you do. But also the other thing it has is this wraith thing where you can kind of walk through walls, which is amazing and great. And also the other thing you get in this, which you don't have at all in Enemy Within, and I think it's the most important thing that's missing in Enemy Within, is this phantom thing where you have soldiers that can remain concealed when the rest of them are found. And I think that would add to Enemy Within a huge amount when you're going around the back of UFOs, when you're trying to ambush aliens and exalt. If you had the ability to remain concealed when the rest of the squad is busted, that would help a lot. I think that's a really, really good addition to XCOM 2. I think that's a massive addition. And really, that's probably about it of great additions. So yeah, on the whole, as you gathered from all the things I've said, I think Enemy Within is a far superior game, not in how it looks or necessarily how it plays, because some of that's just because it's older, but in what it's got in it, it's way better. Phoenix Point, which I talked about before, which is not the point to this video. I may do another video, XCOM against Phoenix Point at some point. But Phoenix Point is way too complicated. It's trying to put too many systems in, and XCOM 2 has taken too many away. If only they could have taken Enemy Within into this kind of look of XCOM 2 and taken some of the systems with it, it would be fantastic. And if only they were going to make an XCOM 3 and do that, that would be totally amazing. It's quite amazing to me, because XCOM is a hugely successful series, that they've not remastered, rebooted Enemy Within, Enemy Unknown or XCOM 2 for modern consoles, or given graphics upgrades. I'm amazed they've not pushed forward with a XCOM 3. Maybe Firaxis has got better things to do, but I'm sure that if they did any of those things, they would be wildly successful. So it's very kind of weird. There's so many disappointing game franchises that continue to push out rubbish, and there's so many new games that aren't that good. And this is like, it's every time you talk about turn-based games, XCOM is the top game that people refer to almost. And yet they've never remade these, they've not been rebooted, they've not been done up, and they've not made an XCOM 3, so it's very strange. Anyway, those are my thoughts on XCOM 2 versus Enemy Within. And as I've said, I do love XCOM 2, don't get me wrong, it's one of my favourite games ever, and I've played it much more than Enemy Within, partly because Enemy Within is only on PlayStation 3, and that's one of the reasons, and it's more the location of where PlayStation 3 is, in a different room in my house, and so it's more laziness than anything else. But yeah, between the two, I would pick Enemy Within as the better game for all the reasons I've just stated. So anyway, thanks for watching Guessagaingaming. Till next time, take care for now.